Welcome to the Dana Grant Show, where heart-centered stories, authentic connections, real talk, and real action come together. I'm your host, Dana Grant, and I believe in the boundless potential within each of us. Join me as we dive into transformative conversations that not only inspire growth, but compassion with a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us. Let's embark on this journey together, unlocking all the power within and creating a life of purpose and fulfillment. This is the Dana Grant Show, where your story matters and your voice is heard, and I cannot wait to dive in. Welcome back to the Dana Grant Show, where we are devoted to heart-driven, centered entrepreneurial actions. And who is center stage today is Rudi Riekstins. And I'm going to tell you, genius doesn't cover who he is. He is one of the leading speakers. He moved me so deeply in a room as he was speaking. And I opened my eyes as he was doing a meditation, and I recognized that everybody was crying. So Rudi, welcome. I am so honored that you're here today. It's taken us a long time to connect, and excited.
It has been a long time coming. Dana, thank you so much for having me. I just want to start off by telling you that I absolutely love and adore you, who you are, how you choose to show up out in the world, the impact that you're creating, and the number of mutual friends that we have that just speak so beautifully of you. So I'm just excited to be able to have this conversation with you today.
Oh, me too. I love your wife. I love the synergy. I love where you choose to show up. We had a little conversation prior to, and we'll let people in on some of the background here. We were having this conversation about his impact in the world and the vibration and energy, and all of a sudden my power blew, my internet blew, and we actually made it back here. Almost in record time, like 20 minutes. I found fuse boxes. I'm like, nothing's getting in the way of this conversation. And so, yeah, we're overcomers too. Says a lot. Says a lot. But the vibrational energy of I think what you have to share is paramount. I don't use those words very often, but I think that you have an impact and a connection. And as I was saying earlier, a soul connection, a vibration connection, a money connect, all those connections. You speak that life into rooms. I've witnessed it. And I had to follow you on stage afterwards. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how do you connect after that? So you're big shoes to follow. You're in big rooms.
You did beautifully. Let me say you did absolutely beautifully.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, you're up there with Tony Robbins. You're in the top. I was looking at with Joe Dispenza, the top 20 thought leaders. This is big shoes, because I think that when you are encapsulated in that kind of energy, where do you tap into to go to serve? Because we said earlier, and you said, how can I serve you? And I'm like, just be you. Share all of your wisdom. Share it all.
I want to start by just acknowledging, because somebody places your name in a magazine or in an article alongside a list of some other incredible people, it doesn't make you equal to them and or mean that that's necessarily your circle. And I want to start with that first and foremost, because for the longest time I spent my life looking outside for validation. Who sees me, who recognizes me, who validates me,
right.
What rooms am I in? What is the impact I'm creating? And all of that had one theme in common, and that was that it was an external force to validate who I am and how I show up out in the world. And the answer to your question is it's an internal job. And if I were to hang my hat on one article, magazine placement, or one something which you had said, which is beautiful and all, but in truth, that's not who I am or what even defines me. But how I choose to wake up every single day, how I choose to feel, and then most important to me, my guiding North Star is, how do I feel when I go to bed at night? If I wake up curating a specific way of how I want to show up, and when I go to bed at night, I'm proud of the person that I am, those are the metrics that are really important to me as a person, and how I get to show up and who I get to be. And for anybody that is listening to this, maybe you have aspiring coaches that are listening, or you have somebody who is wanting to get into business and get to the next level. Don't place your value outside of you in anything other than how do you feel when you wake up and how do you feel about what you did when you go to bed. And if you are good with you, that is the only thing that should matter. But the beautiful side is when you choose to live your life like that, floodgates open, opportunity starts to open, and your life becomes really full. I spent the majority of my life looking for external validation, and it is a very lonely, dark, and miserable place when
Mhm.
everything else is determining your level of self worth, or your level of joy, or your level of happiness, or your level of freedom. Um, and so I no longer place any of my values in any of those things. It's truly about how do I wake up and how do I go to bed.
I always say that I align with heart-driven people. What you just said, I feel like has been my life's work. Removing that external. And I tell people that whether they love me or whether they don't, it's not any of I cannot attach myself to that. I have to, when I go to bed at night and when I wake up in the morning, I have to stay in whatever that energy is that I feel called and driven to, even if it doesn't, it is not the most popular choice. But placing my value out there in the external world, I think I would call that the number one disaster for business and for self-esteem, self-worth, self-love. It's that whenever they want to pull that carpet out from underneath you, boom, you can be adored, and then the minute it's gone, it's gone. And I love the fact you said that. Doesn't matter what magazine I'm getting coming up and going in a lot of magazines and articles. Doesn't matter. It's great to be recognized, but it shows me that my heart-driven actions are being noticed. But it's how I go to bed at night, where I'm aligning, and I love that you illuminated that. That because you're up there with some big names, big thought leaders, and it's because you've earned that place in the world because of what you do. And I think that what you just said was powerful. How I connect at bedtime, how I connect when I wake up. What do you do? Tell me some simple steps that you do throughout the day to stay connected to Rudi and what aligns with you.
Gosh, let me answer your question by first telling you that I used to be somebody that had I still do today, have a tremendous amount of energy. But what I mean was, I would have a lot of like pent up energy that when I walked into a room, I controlled the mood of the room. If Rudi was in a good mood, everything was going to be okay in the room. If Rudi was in a bad
Mhm.
mood, everybody would stand around and be like, "Oh, what do we do now?" And I would have people on their toes. And I don't mean I was being a bad person. I just mean if I wasn't in control of my energy. And I would have these mood
Mm.
swings. I would go from extreme highs to extreme lows. I was a workaholic, 20 hours a day. I wanted to drive behavior, performance, go, go, go. Nothing was ever enough. That was how I lived most of my life. And then around my late 20s, early 30s, I decided to start learning to identify with who is Rudi outside of money? Who is Rudi outside of his business? Who is Rudi outside of these friendships or relationships or family dynamics?
Yeah.
And it took me on a journey. And people talk about going on spiritual journeys, and I don't want to belittle any journey, but for me, it was more of like an inner connection to who am I. And so I started separating myself from some of my friends, some of my relationships, some of my family members, just things. And I wanted to spend a lot of time in solitude, a lot of time by myself. And I started paying attention to what do I feel like outside of heightened emotion. So when we as human beings, this, I'm explaining for the benefit of the audience. When you
Yes.
think a thought, the thought produces a chemical. The chemical goes into the body. We call that chemical interaction and emotion. And so the emotion updates the physiological state, but that also updates the energetic state, which is around the human body. It's anywhere up to 15 feet. And so you've got these three different elements that are communicating on your behalf and or influencing you. My emotions were so erratic that I was constantly being stimulated or driven by people around me, behavior, how somebody showed up, how they reacted, what they did or what they didn't do. And so that made me either very happy or very frustrated or very sad or very depressed and just a lot of emotion. And I started a practice of meditation where I would breathe in and breathe out and calm myself because I had a lot of things that were causing anxiety in my life at the time. And so I started meditating for the sole benefit of wanting to learn to curate a state where I no longer felt beholden to those emotions. And then I was able to actually tap into what does it feel like to be Rudi outside of emotion. Now, I want your audience to really understand what I'm saying.
Mm.
To be Rudi with no emotion, not positive or not negative, just calm. What does that feel like? And so when I started to find through breathing in and breathing out, and I'm going to give
Mm,
you the exercise. So for anyone that wants to do this, if you're suffering from emotion, if you've got anxiety, you've got stress, I used to breathe in and breathe out. And as I would breathe in, I would breathe in clear, bright white light from the top of my head, traveling all the way down my spine, filling it like it would fill a glass of water. And then when I would breathe out, I would breathe out a black light, imagining the stress being black going out of my body and then the white coming in, calming my body. Now, you can pick any color you want, but I chose those colors because I was using the thought process of drawing in an imaginary white light and then imaginary stress leaving my body. And that was now controlling my
mm,
mind. It was controlling my thoughts, and it allowed me to calm down. I would do that for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, sometimes 20 minutes, depending on what was happening in my life or in my business. And then I
mm,
would get to a place where I had no emotion. I was completely still and completely calm. I read a
yeah.
book years ago, and I cannot for the life of me find the book or the author. I would love to credit them, but they mentioned that in your stomach you have a guidance system, and that's telling you whether you're going in the right direction or the wrong direction. And if you just pay attention to the intuitiveness of your stomach, you'll know what are you really thinking unconsciously. And so they taught to picture a candle in your stomach, and if there's a candle in your stomach and it's flickering, then you're in heightened emotion. And if you can calm that candle so that it's glowing beautifully brightly as if it were inside your
Mm,
abdomen, then you're at a state of calm. So I did that exercise every single day, 3, 4, 5 times a day. People say, oh, I meditate. Well, how often? Oh, 5 minutes in the morning. Well, I meditated every morning for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Then I'd get to work. I'd have to do it again. 10 o'clock, I'd have an argument with somebody at work. I'd do it again. Then my, business partner would say something. I would do it again at noon. And I was constantly going back to find my centered self. When you are making decisions in your day and they're made from heightened emotion, positive or negative, you are no longer in control, you, the person. But when you are in a clear, calm state, then you are able to make decisions from your highest and greatest potential. And that's you making decisions for you.
mm,
That's you in control. And I started to really enjoy the feeling of knowing, who am I? What does it feel like to be Rudi? I then stopped drinking alcohol. I stopped having sugar. I cut out dairy. I cut out meat. I went like completely crazy. And for about 3 years, just purified my entire body. I purified my mind. I purified my routines, my relationships, everything so I could control and curate that state. Not only did my entire life change, I mean, income and relationships and what I was doing and where I was going, everything around me changed. But I became acutely aware of what does Rudi feel like without outside emotion. I've actually never spoken about this on a podcast before. And I think that this is so underutilized, the value and the importance of knowing what does it feel like to be you. Aniston, my wife, and I, we host a podcast called The Empowered Life, and we're actually have an episode that's launching in the new year, and it is about controlling your emotional state. So it's first on the Dana Grant show, then it's coming to The Empowered Life, and we're talking about the value and the importance of knowing what do you feel like. So when people ask me what is my routine is every single morning to wake up, release my thoughts, my feelings, my stress, my worries, my eagerness, my excitement, my wife's eagerness, excitement, or frustration, or any of those things,
yeah.
and just become completely calm and completely neutral. And I know what that feels like. I'm so intimately aware of what that
Mm,
feels like. So that later in my day, if I get a letter in the mail and it's not good news, or I get a
mhm,
phone call and it's frustrating,
mhm,
or somebody, bumps my car and there's some kind of interaction, I now know how to go from heightened emotion, frantic, upset, angry, pissed off, all of a sudden down to calm and neutral. And I can do that in about 15 seconds. But it's only because I know what it looks like to be there. I know what it feels like to be there. And so I know how to get back to it. The
yeah.
majority of people have no idea what they feel like outside of emotion. So I'm
Yeah.
going to give it back to you in a second. I just want to hammer this point one more time. If you were in a relationship and you live with somebody, or you live in a home, maybe you live with your family members, or you live with your parents, or you've got a husband or a wife or a partner, and you spend time with them, you're in their energy. And if you're in their energy is communicating with your energy. And so if somebody is frustrated, depressed, resentful, angry, and you spending time with them, you will start to feel frustrated, resentful, and angry because you're spending time with them. Just yesterday, my wife and I went for a 4 mile walk through our neighborhood, and we bumped into two neighbors down the road. We spent probably about 3 minutes talking to them. And when they turned to walk in the opposite direction, I had debilitating anxiety. I was like, I have got such bad cramps. I had to stop, and I stood there taking deep breaths. And my wife said, what's wrong? And I was like, wow. I was like, that lady's energy was so intense. Like, she is so stressed, like the depression, the anxiety, the stress in her, that it made me feel nauseous. Now, because I'm aware that I didn't feel that way before I met her, and when she walked away, I didn't identify with, wow, I'm feeling really anxious, because that's
Right.
what people think. They feel it in their body, so they think it's their emotion. And so
Right.
if someone spends a lot of time in someone else's energy, they start to feel like that person. And then they make decisions from that vantage point. Can you imagine? I met that couple, I felt anxious. My phone rang and someone said, Rudy, we've got a great opportunity for you. Would you like to fly out to LA and do this thing? And I'm feeling anxious. In that moment, I would have anxiety. I'd be making decisions from anxiety. So I probably would say no. But if I can identify that's not me, that's not my emotion, I can go back
Mm.
to neutral. Now, when I
Right.
get on the phone, I can ask the question, wow, does that opportunity feel exciting and expansive, or does it feel restrictive? And so, long answer to a question, a brilliant question. What is the most important thing that I can do every day? And that's to connect to who I am and what do I feel like, so that I'm in control of my life when I go out and live it.
I think we need to like put this on repeat, what you just said, and including the candle. That's brilliant because I do believe the solar plex, the stomach is our brain, our body's brain. So everything you said, yes, resonated deeply with me. But the visual, I'm a very visual person, and I know a lot of people are. It's such an easy exercise. Does it feel like a warm, glowing light, or does it feel like a flickering light? When the power went off and everything, it was flickering. I'm running to the power box. It was flickering. And what the first thing I said to you is, you said, what can I do? I said, grab some tea. I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm going to get back into my zone. Otherwise, I'm still vibrating at what's happened. But I actually had to say that whatever we had to talk about today was so impactful and so important. I'm not willing to let it go. And now I know why. What you just said was beyond. Um, I mean, I'm still taking it in, and I'm thinking about what Liz Gilbert said, be curious. What curiosity is what we want to lean into. Be curious. I want to be curious about everything you just said. And you can be curious or you could be fearful, and you must apply it over and over again. Like you said, I didn't meditate one time. I do it over and over again. People ask me a lot why I get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, because between 3 and 4 in the morning is the most connected time. It's the most peaceful time. It's the best time to meditate. And I start my day off with connected energy to me. But what you just did was elevate it in such a beautiful, eloquent way. You are so gifted with your, I'm going to say, upgraded language of heart centered, and the way you deliver it, it's so digestible. It's not difficult to follow. I'm like, we can all visualize that candle. And what you just shared, I'm honored that it's here first. I think I'm gonna put on the podcast, hear it here first, like, a carnival, like here first, flashing light, because I think it's what people need. And that was, thank you, my friend, that value beyond value. And what I look at now, when you said, who is Rudy? Who is Rudy now? What are you calling in now? So for a twofold question. I wasn't going to ask this, but I am. I know that I deal with a lot of people with high anxiety, ADHD. I know exactly what you're saying when they bring and I remember someone saying years ago I emotionally would vomit on them my anxiety, and I was very anxious about perfectionism and overly driven, and it was a crash and burn. I got very sick for a lot of years and had to learn some valuable lessons from that. But I'm noticing now, especially the end of the year of 2024, people are very anxious about what they've created, what they've done, what the 2025. And I'm like, let 24 go into it like a crescendo into 2025. What can you take and what can you leave? And let's assess. Let's be still. But what would you say for the people that are super anxiety, paramount, they don't know how to do this? And twofold, so I don't for and who is Rudy now? What is this bringing into your life now that you are applying this?
So the first thing I want to say is if you resonate with the example of the candle, I have a free gift for your audience that is on my website where they can actually download a free meditation, and it's called the Candle Meditation.
Oh,
And
you're
it
all
will
going to get
take
this, by the way. Don't get anxious. You're going to have all his links, all his connections. You're going to want to follow him everywhere. We'll give you that.
So
So,
I will mark that as a free gift for you, and
oh,
you can
thank
just
you.
download that, and then that takes you through just the process of how to imagine that candle. Now, I want to just preface the quality of that meditation is not equal to the quality of the meditations that I currently do today. But I wanted that to stay in its authentic state because that was the meditation I created when I was doing the meditation. So I created a
Yeah.
meditation for me. And then I would sit literally with that in my car, on my couch, wherever I was, and I would play that meditation. And it is probably one of the most like I would get the most feedback from that from people that work with me, even though that was created, I don't even know, 10, 12 years ago. And anyhow, it is just a free gift for you. I hope that it helps and serves anyone who is wanting to take their power back. So the first thing people need to understand, if you are somebody that is experiencing heightened emotion and it's negative emotion, so you're feeling anxiety and you're feeling stress, or you're feeling anxious about the next year or what you have or haven't done in this year, my advice to anybody that is feeling that level of emotion is to first identify what is causing the emotion. Now, I'm not somebody who wants to spend a tremendous amount of time looking at the past. Where were you? What happened? I think there's a time and a place for that. But when we can just identify where are we being triggered by the emotion. And so if
Mm,
something's coming up for you and you feel anxious, you feel nervous. So I'll be very open on the platform. The last 2 weeks, I have suffered what felt like almost debilitating anxiety. And I am not somebody who is controlled by my emotions. I am in my control because I understand what an emotion is. I understand thoughts produce feelings, thoughts and feelings drive the behavior, and the body is responding.
yeah.
And so I can very quickly bring myself back to neutral. And I had said earlier that approximately 15 to 30 seconds is how long it takes me to go from angry to completely calm. And it's a process of just reconnecting. And it's feeling that emotion, what I created in the morning. But I would wake up with this anxiety and I would feel it in my gut, like I'm nervous, I'm worried. And then I would look at my life and I'd say, there's nothing to be nervous or worried about. And I would look at my business and I'd say, there's nothing to be worried in my business. And I would look at my family and my health, my well being. And I'm like, why am I so anxious? But I feel that anxiety. Then I'll start looking around. Is it my wife that's anxious? She's got a book that's coming out. Maybe she's anxious. I talk to her. Nope, she's nothing but excited. I talk to my kids. I've got two beautiful children. Nope, nothing is, causing anxiety in their life.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting with this emotion. And now my job is to identify, am I actually worried about something? Is there something causing stress in my life? And here's what most people don't identify with. Or am I excited about something that's potentially coming? You see, we
Mm,
experience anxiety and we experience fear and we experience
mm,
excitement, and they all feel very, very similar.
yeah.
So you asked a really pointed question because it's one answer. I am shifting my life and my business somewhat to start doing in person retreats, something I've never done before. I do a lot of events, but I do events for companies. We
Yeah.
just hosted a massive, incredible $5 million 5 day event, now,
Yeah.
what, a month ago.
Yeah.
And it's for one of my clients. They bring their people, we put it together. It is the greatest, week of my life.
Yeah.
Truly, every single year we just do it again and again and again, and it drives unbelievable change. But it's their people, my
Yeah.
content. And then I'll go to the next company, and on a smaller scale we'll do it again, and then I'll go to, and it's a repetition. But it's never been Rudi saying, hey, I'm going to put my sign up outside the door and say who would like to attend my event, versus it being for an organization. And
Does that feel vulnerable? Not to interrupt, but does that feel vulnerable to you that
it
I'm putting
does.
my name on the door? So the anxiety might be like, it's all me. I don't have a buffer of their people. I'm calling in my people.
100%.
That's
And so here's the beauty of what you just said and the question that you asked. I was waking up feeling anxiety. So let's talk about what anxiety feels like. I would wake up, my stomach would feel like there was an emptiness. and then have a little bit of acidity in there. I might feel like
Mhm.
I need to go to the bathroom. I'm anxious. I'm worried. Oh,
Mhm.
what did I eat? Like it's just
Mhm.
that feeling. And then it would dissipate a little bit, but it would keep coming back. And if it was unchecked, it would get really big and intense. And then it would, settle down a little bit. But I always just noticed that feeling. And then I started to ask myself, where is this coming from? Why am I experiencing this? What is going on? And like I am looking at somebody else's business, I mapped out what's going on in my business. Am I worried about a client? Am I worried about, okay, no, no. And I'm literally putting out these fake fires. Like, is this a problem? No. Okay, so let's put that
I
one out.
love
Is it
that.
this?
Fake
No. And I was
fires. I'm putting out
identifying through a
fake
process of
fires.
elimination. 100%. And then I realized, wow, you know what? I'm actually have anxiety about the event that my wife and I are going to be launching. It's going to be in October, but it wasn't anxiety. It was excitement. And the nervousness was, how big will it be? How small will it be? What if only 10 people show up? What if we book a room for 30 people and we get 100? What if we book a 100-person room and we sell 600? Like there's just all these thoughts and feelings. And whereas my whole career has always been, well, I'll show up, I'll create and curate the content, and they put people in. So I've never had to worry. So I show up, there's 500 people in the room. I show up, there's 100 people in the room. I'm not in control of that. And the moment I decided, hey, I want to do it where we have our community show up, that's when all of a sudden the thoughts started to come in of, what if nobody buys a ticket? Or the thought of, what if we book the wrong venue? Or what if people don't like the food that's being, like, and it's, you start to think of all these things. And it were thoughts I never had to have before. And so I
Yeah.
realized I wasn't anxious, I was excited. Now, I
Yeah.
want to explain that in terms of the human brain and how we function. The human
Mhm.
brain is always going to divide all information between, is this going to cause you pleasure or is it going to cause you pain? And if it's going to
Mm.
potentially cause you pain, your brain's going to do anything and everything to try and avoid you having any form of pain. And so the moment you decide you want to do something and you set a goal for yourself, and now that you're coming to the end of the year, you might be feeling anxious because you didn't do what you said you were going to do. And your soul is kind of talking to you saying, hey, girl, or hey, guy, you didn't meet that expectation. You didn't do that thing. You know you can. You know you're capable. You know you copped out. And you might be feeling that. So that pressure might be an internal pressure of saying, like, man, you didn't meet that expectation. Or maybe you're sitting here contemplating, I'm going to leave my job, or I'm going to get into a better relationship, or I'm going to, start a career, or I'm going to host my own event, whatever the thing is. And now all of a sudden you've got something to lose. And so the brain's producing emotions and chemicals and dumping it into your body, and you now have to reconcile those thoughts. The best
Mm.
advice I can give anybody in any situation is asking yourself, if you were to stay the same right now, would you be okay?
Mm. Can you say that again?
If you were to stay the same, nothing at all changes in your life, would you be okay with that? And
Mm.
if anything is going to change, then that means you're going to have to experience something that you've never experienced. Now, here's the kicker: the moment the brain identifies that you're about to experience something you've never experienced, the brain starts to dump chemicals of caution. Be careful. We don't know what's going to happen. And we interpret that as anxiety. We interpret that as
Mm.
fear. We interpret that as, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. And all these chemicals start to flood the body. The brain then goes into the memory banks of every time you've ever felt unworthy, you weren't good enough. And then you were validated in feeling that way. And so it starts dumping the chemicals in your body. You start thinking all the times it ever happened, and you're now living in the past. Whereas every single time my life starts to change, it doesn't matter what it is, anything that changes in my life, I sit back, I put a grin on my face, even if I have to force it. I'll fold my arms and then I'll sit there contemplating and I'll be like, this is the answer to what I've been asking for. This is the beginning of the change.
Oh,
And
this
so
is the answer of what I've been asking for. This is the answer of what I've been asking for. I was going to say, what is that key moment where you put the key in and all this, everyone can identify with what you just said, but that is it. This is the answer to what I've been asking for. Better than
if
trust the
you,
process. I think I'm going to take down trust the process and say, this is the answer I've been asking for.
it really is.
Brilliant.
Everything in your life is. It beautifully
Brilliant.
is. If you are saying, you know what, I am married and my partner doesn't see me, doesn't love me, doesn't value me, is cheating on me, whatever it is. And then one day they walk in the front door and say, I'm leaving. And you're like, no, 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 no. But for months you've been saying, I deserve more, I want better, and then all of a sudden something starts to change. That's the answer to what you've been asking for. If you're saying, I want to start my business, I want to go out and create an impact, I want to write a book, I want to do these things, and then you get fired or furloughed or whatever, that's the
Yes.
answer to what you've
Sir.
been asking for. Instead of saying, oh no, and trying to defend and protect and keep it the same, allow
Yeah.
the universe to flow to you and through you. The change is necessary.
Mm. So when people resist there, because perhaps there's their core wound is safety, so their core fear is safety. So this happens, they know they need to move on, but maybe their inner child, we'll just throw that out there. A version of themselves is still so attached and they don't know how to let go. What can we give them to say? Because you are so good with like putting that key in and just boom, delivering. What would you give them that they're not ready? They don't think they're ready because the story they've created is, I can't, I can't, I can't. There's so much to lose. What would you tell them on a deeper level?
So
Yeah.
everybody needs evidence. So it doesn't matter who you are, what you've done, how much you've achieved.
Mm,
Everybody needs evidence. And when something starts to change, you're going to question that change because you cannot see round the bend. It's like the analogy of driving at night. You can only see the 200 feet in front of you where your light's shining. But we
yes.
have to trust that the road still extends past what we can see with the lights. And so we keep driving. You can drive on a highway with no lighting on the road. Everything is pitch dark. You can only see 100 to 200 feet in front of you, and you're driving 80 miles an hour. But you trust the road's going to keep being there. The life is the same way. And our responsibility is to
Mm,
just stay open and excited for what's to come. And so when somebody says to me, man, I'm really nervous or I'm stressed or I'm worried, the same way I will apply to my life, the example for the event that I'm going to be hosting, and trusting the right people will be in that room for what is available to them and for what I can offer, and let
mhm.
go of the ego. Because I started saying to you, what if only 5 people show up? Or what if only 10 people are in the room? Well, that means 10 people need what is in that room. And how beautiful is that? What if 700 people show up and I only have a room for 100? Well, great. We will figure that out, but because there's
Yeah.
beauty and divinity in that. But
Yes.
I'm not going to go into it with my ego. What
Yeah.
we do is we get involved and we start to think about, how is what I'm doing or what I'm experiencing, how are people going to judge me based on what they're seeing or what
Right.
the experience is? And
Hmm.
rather than worrying about what other people are thinking, I would want to move to another state where I am looking at the evidence of every time something happened in my life where I was nervous, anxious, worried, stressed, and it worked out well. So,
Mm,
you know,
mm,
I love to use examples of love because I'm a lover of love. And my first real memory as a child, and I mean, we all have obviously thousands of memories from our childhood, but my most prominent memories as a child was me getting out of my bed when I was still in kindergarten, getting on my hands and knees and praying to God that I would meet my wife. I remember saying, could I meet my wife tomorrow? I was just always ready to meet my wife, kind of like my soul knew she was there and I was waiting to meet her. So every time I'd walk into a classroom and there'd be a new girl that had come to our little town, I grew up in a really small town. I'd be like, is that her? Is that her? And then I'd be disappointed when it wasn't my wife, And I just spent up until my 30s looking for my wife. But in my 20s, I had a relationship where I loved someone, first real love, first real long term relationship. And then she cheated on me. And in that process of the cheating, I was angry, I was upset, I was frustrated. But when I look at it today, there isn't a day that I don't wake up that I don't say thank you to her, because I now know what is the quality of the relationship I have in my relationship with Aniston. And I am so grateful for all of the experiences of what I've had, because when I look at my wife, I am just in awe of her, how she treats me, how I treat her, the quality of the relationship, how we make each other feel, how we show up for each other. But I had to go through at least 6 or 7 really bad relationships to show me what does it look like to have a really good one. And so,
yeah.
those relationships, when I was cheated on, I didn't want it to end at the time, but it was
Right.
forcibly, it came to closure. And then
Yeah.
I had to reconcile that. But what if I had just turned around and said, this door's closing because there's another beautiful opportunity that's coming. I don't have to like this, but I'm going to be open to whatever's coming when it comes, and staying in that
Yeah.
place. If I'm going to host an event and I'm nervous or anxious, or at least I'm processing the emotions of I've never done that before. And so that makes me cautious, and I'm processing emotions of excitement and also anxiety or stress.
Mm.
And then turn around saying, well, when have I ever done something new that I've never done, and how did that work? Oh, well, I started a podcast. Well, how's that going? And then I look at the results. Or, you know what, I'd never spoken on a stage before, and now I do. And how's that going? And then, I'd never coached someone before. When I first said, I'm a coach now, and I had to take someone's money and then had to show up and
Yes.
add value. And so there's always times where we have to do
Yeah.
something we've never done. But if we can look backwards at every time something happened, so I want your audience right now, if you're listening to this, I want you to think of a time in your life where you were experiencing something, some form of change, something was happening, and you felt out of control. You felt unfair. You felt like it was you were being victimized. You felt like you didn't have the control over what was happening to you or that moment. And then I want you to fast forward to today, and with the vantage point of who you are today and all the knowledge that you've gained, look back and say, where was the gift in that? Where was the value in that? Where was the divinity in that? Where was all of the aligned moments that pre-qualified you to be where you are today? I want to give one more example because I think that this is going to serve some people.
Mm.
I was sexually assaulted at 6 years old by an older female
Mm.
cousin. And, I don't think anybody would ever actively choose an experience like that. And, I wake up almost every day grateful for everything that I've ever experienced, every relationship, every interaction, every abusive, every bully. I've had a gun put to my head 4 times in my life, 4 separate situations. I've been robbed. Like I can just keep going, and all of these have accumulated to the person I get to be today. And more than 60% of the people that I work with have suffered sexual assault. And because I have had an experience, I healed, I learned, and I grew through it, I can turn around and lessen somebody else's time in the pain. And how beautiful is that? And so I don't say, oh, I'm so glad that I had that, or that was such a
Yeah.
wonderful experience. It wasn't.
Yeah.
But I can have so much love for the experience. My cousin has since passed. She took her own life about 10 years ago, but I
Absolutely.
still send her love and thanks for all of the lessons that I gained, because every day when I talk to somebody that's going through that, I can relate to them in some way, shape, or form. And it gives value and meaning to all of my past experience. And so, even if I'm nervous or anxious in this moment, can I look back at all the other things that I didn't understand at the time, and then later find the divinity in them, later find the synchronicities, and later find the value and the
Yeah.
meaning? And
There's a
the
key.
people that
Later,
live the
find the value in
happiest
the
is doing it
in the
now.
moment. The healing has to happen. But the later, boy, that was a beautiful how you unfolded that, because you can find it in the moment, but you can find it later. What would you say to the people? This is such a beautiful topic that you landed on right here. And I think this needs to be expressed because so many people out there, and this just recently happened to me. Someone said, you've had a really messy life, that you call in a lot of trauma, chaos. And I started to take it personally. And I thought, I've had a big, messy life, but I've taken every bit of that, and I wasn't grateful at the moment, but I chose the healing, I chose the work, and I chose to now be so grateful, because without those lessons, I couldn't be here doing what I do. And sometimes I have to revisit it, but it triggered me a little bit, and I had to think, what is that rubbing up against? What is it that I'm still holding on to that I'm not totally in alignment with, because that felt a little angsty to me. What would you say to those people that are carrying that around when something is dumped on you from another projection of what a big, messy, chaotic life, and boy, you sure call in a lot of trouble. I mean, 9 guns to your head. What is that about? Were you in the wrong place at the wrong time? I mean, I understand it, but what would you say to the people that are saying, why would that happen? I mean, these are these perspectives that you're speaking to, all this different energies and elements.
So To just better clarify or understand your question, you're meaning
Thank
if
you for that
somebody
because it
were
was like it
to see,
started and it kind of went down a wormhole, but thank you for clarifying that.
that's okay. So to say if somebody came to you and they put a label on you while you're calling in messiness and that
Yeah.
brings up emotion in you, what would I say to that person?
Yeah, what would you say? What would you say to
So
yourself
if
as
you're
well? First to self and then maybe how would you deal with that?
so anytime we're feeling emotion, then that means that we have a resonance to that.
Mm,
And what I want to do is I want to turn this really around on the individual so that the individual can take a level of accountability with themselves at a higher level than they've ever done before.
mm,
If somebody cuts me off in traffic and my hand goes up and my middle finger comes out and I drop an F bomb, I have to acknowledge that something about that interaction was a mirrored match within me.
mm,
It's not about the person that's cutting in front of me. It's not
mm,
about, what somebody else has done or what somebody else has said. So if somebody walked up to you and they said, "Wow, you've really called in a bunch of mess," that means that somewhere in you, you still believe that you called in a whole lot of mess, or that your life was a mess, or that you had to take control like it was your fault. And so you have a resonance to that and it created emotion. If
mm.
I were to turn around and say to you now, you are the ugliest man I've ever seen, Dana, you would laugh because you would say, I'm not a man and I'm not ugly, right? There would be no resonance to that. Does that make sense? But
Yeah.
if I were to say, wow, you're just a terrible this or this, and you felt maybe you were, it would then validate that they are right and you are right and you should feel that way and you should stay that way. And so I say
Mm,
to people, we need to always look at the emotions. What is causing heightened emotion
mm,
in us? Because it is a lesson and it is an opportunity to clear it. Who would you be
mm.
if you were never triggered by somebody saying something like that to you? If somebody walks up to you and says, "Wow, you've really called in a tumultuous life," and you go, "Hell yeah, I did. But I am so qualified today to move people through what they did. It was so divinely led. In fact, take a seat because I want to tell you about this all powerful God that flows to me and through me and created this perfect life that I would be qualified to be who I came here to be. And let me tell you about these lessons," rather than looking at it as if you had something. And so,
Yeah, I take it a step further. I take it and saying, listen, my 60 years on this planet, I wouldn't hire a life coach that doesn't show me a massive life, what they achieved, where they struggled, what they overcame, and where they're at. That's what I want to look at. Don't show me the degrees. I mean, all those certifications, all that, like you said, out there, the magazines, all that's no, I want to see, I want to dig in and see what have you done with it? Where's that grit? Where's the resilience? Where's your consistency to that commitment that you said you wanted? And that's what I'm looking for. I want to see that light and I want to see the shadow. I want to see it all. Because we don't just live in the light. The shadow work is what really, I think, that forged in the fire. I love this conversation. I adore you. I adore time spent with you. I just want to like I want to be at the event. I want to be there. And you said October, and I'm like, oh gosh, I've got a retreat in October in Italy. I'm like, I wonder what the dates are so I can be at Rudy's event because I can't think I could bask in that energy and just be totally fed like grapes. And I mean, it's like soul food, soul food. So I have one last question for you, and I want to respect your time because we had some problems getting on, and I've kept you a long time, and I'm so grateful. My audience is so grateful. You are amazing. I don't like to use that word amazing, but it's like I'm so like starstruck and amazing right now. It's like awesome, amazing. You're incredible. You're incredible. But what feels like love in your life right now, Rudy? What feels like love?
you feel like love in my life right now. Anybody that's going to log onto a call and have someone tell them how wonderful and amazing they are is such a beautiful expression of life. So I'm going to say thank you to you. And you know,
Oh
I
my
would
gosh.
not share
Receive.
time with you or anyone else if I didn't resonate and or align with you. And that's not because I think I'm better than somebody else. It's because I know
Yeah.
that I deserve the best. And my advice would be for other people to know and to deserve the best and to spend time with people that they love,
Mm.
that they adore, that they cherish, and that they want to spend time with. Um, and so thank you so much. I'm trying to think of the best way for me to answer your question. Um, I started earlier today just saying that I believe that we are love. We come from love. And anytime that we are emitting love in our life, that we are not being our true and authentic self. And the moment we allow something else to come in the way, like, oh, I need to make money, well, we're now not acting in accordance with who we are. And
Yeah.
I grew up in a household where my mom never allowed us to use the word hate. We weren't allowed to. We could
Mm,
say we immensely disliked Brussels sprouts growing up, but we weren't allowed to say we hate Brussels sprouts, right? And
mm,
she would say that, the word hate is the emission of God, and that God is
mm,
love, and that love is flowing to you and through you, and that you are love. But if you are going to um, say that something is hateful or that there is hate, it's the opposite of love. So there's no existence of that flow and that force. And so I have spent a lifetime just curating a lot of love and loving relationships, loving people, loving space, loving what I do, loving where I go. And that anytime I don't feel in love with something, it means that that flow and that force is not going in that particular path or that channel. And when somebody asks me a question anyway, and I know that I have a finite amount of time to impact anyone that might be listening, I always want to make it more about the audience than I want to make it about me. And I want to challenge anyone that's listening this to think about anything and everything that you're doing right now. And if you don't feel love for that thing that you're doing or the thing that you're going to be doing, and it feels like I should do
mm,
or I have to do, my advice would be to not do it. I had a conversation with somebody this
mm.
morning in the gym, and he was saying, well, I've got to go to, this dinner party, and then I've got to go to this Christmas party. I've got to go to, and he listed 5 Christmas parties. And I said to him, how do you feel about that? And he goes, man, it doesn't feel like the holidays to me. It feels exhausting. I just can't wait to go back to work and just have my
Right.
work be my work. And I said, well, why are you going? Don't go. And he's like, I have to go. And if you don't
Mm,
love it, if it feels like a have to, then it's not something that you should be doing. And so give
mm,
yourself the gift of love this holiday, and do things for you. And that when you fill your cup, you have more to give other people. We've heard the analogy of fill your cup so that the cup overflows. What I love is that there's another analogy added to that, that under that cup is a saucer, and that the universe can drink from the saucer, but never ever deplete the cup. Allow the cup to overflow. And so give yourself all the gifts of love. And the more love you have coming from you, emanating from you, because you're doing things for you, lighting your life up, lighting up your soul. And that could be projects, painting, working in the garden, spending time with family members, writing a book, reading a book, taking a bath. Fill your life with love. And when you can fill it, your cup will overflow. So that when you walk into another room, you're going to be better prepared to be the person that you came here to be. And people will have a better time with you when you're giving selflessly of yourself in every way because you took the time to give to yourself. So I
ah,
wanted that to
my
be my closing gift.
my cup overfloweth today. I mean, overfloweth. I mean, I'm going to pay it forward all day long. I'm like, my, and I say everything's energy and vibrate. You have me vibrating so, my frequency is so high. I'm like, everyone's going to get the gift of your words, your wisdom. I'm going to pay it forward all day long. Thank you so much for being here. Last thing, how can people find you? What's coming up? What's going on? You've talked about retreats. Tell us a little bit about that.
I just thank you for the conversation. I have no agenda, nowhere to direct anybody, but just to remind people that you were created by the most brilliant force, and that it's flowing to you and through you, and you came here to live a big life. So don't play small, be big, be bold, be brave, be beautiful, but be you.
Yeah.
If you resonate with me, I'm on Instagram at Rudi Riekstins, which I will beg you to put in the show notes, because if I were to spell it, everybody would get it
Well, yeah,
wrong.
we're going to put it all out there because they need
Or
to. They need to connect. Yeah.
rudyriekstins.com. So
Yeah.
thank you so much. I appreciate you. I love you. And I am excited to have you on the Empowered Life podcast so
Oh,
we can share your brilliance with our audience.
Rudy, you are beyond. You are beyond. I said that when you did that meditation in that room. I said, this is beyond. He's dropped into a level of deep connection throughout the body, and you are such a treasure. I adore you. I love you. I'm so grateful for you. Thank you. Thank you for coming on the show. And I can't wait to be on yours. Merry Christmas. Have a beautiful holiday. And there's so much love for you. And give your wife my love too and your family. I can't wait to connect again very soon. Thank you.
Well, Merry Christmas. Love you too.